et bienvenue dans ma salle de collection. Hello everyone, I'm Jean-François Rolland and I'm pleased to welcome you in my Star Wars toy collection room.
Hello, YouTube. Welcome to another edition of Star Wars Collections and Displays. As always, I am Jack, and as always, we have Jim with us today. Hello, Jim. We
Hi
have a
there.
very special guest that's joining us to talk about his collection and life in Star Wars. I'm going to hand it over to you. If you can please introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and a little bit about your collection.
Okay, so hello, my name is Jean-François Rolland. I'm living in France in near Paris suburbs, and I'm very happy to be with you guys today because we're gonna share our passion talking about toy and Star Wars movies. So it's gonna be a great time. I've been collecting toys for about, let's say, since I'm a kid, since I saw Star Wars back in France in October 1977. I used to say my parents are the first Star Wars fan in the family because they are the one who bring me to the movie theater. What have they done, you know? So the thing is all it started for us over here. It was fall 1977, and then the second shock for me was like having the toys. So that's because we didn't have the movie on TV and all and so on. So it was really great to enjoy to recreate your favorite movie with the toys. And I was about 6 years old when I saw Star Wars, so it was probably one of my first souvenir as a in the movie theater. And this is all it started for me, Star Wars in October 1977.
That's really great. That's exciting. Can you tell us any special memories that you remember standing in line? How long was the line?
Other thing was this huge poster in the subway in the train station at the time, subway station. We have this huge giant Star Wars poster written in French, and it was like something very curious for us because we never seen that something like that before. So seeing those ad poster in the subway train station bring us to the movie theater, and at the movie theater you have the lobby card, and where you can see all this strange character, this robot we didn't knew how to call it droid yet, C-3PO and R2-D2 and Ben Kenobi with his lightsaber, but this was like more like a light sword of some kind, and we haven't got a clue about what it was, especially when you're a kid. But getting in line and them going to see the movie was like it blew my mind, like million of people around the world basically.
For sure. Why was it October 1977? The movie came out in May of 1977. Why, 6 months later?
Usually we have this gap between the States and France, which is take times to do the dub version in French, usually. And it was like always another 6 months when a movie came out in the States, you have to wait like 6 months, or you can go to England when it was like shorter time, but not for Star Wars because Star Wars, I think, come in January 1978 back in the UK. But for us, we always have a gap of 6 months at the time.
I see. And your parents saw the movie first and then decided to go see it again and bring you? What's that story?
Exactly. It was my parents saw the movie first, and then they thought it was quite a kind of movie that I can liked. So they bring me at the movie theater after they saw it.
Interesting. Very cool.
They saw it twice.
Yeah, and many more.
Wow. Well, let's take a little bit of time and talk about your collection. Is it action figures? Is it vehicles, helmets, lightsabers, comics? What's your interest there?
The main interest was actually action figures, playsets, and vehicles. I was targeting those. I had a few comics as well, but really what I liked the most is having the toys and recreate the movie. That was the main target. And when I was a young adult, started recollecting, there was a gap between the teenage time, the childhood and teenage time, and the young adult when I stopped my business life. I was really dedicated my collection to the Kenner toy line, basically.
And was it the 3 3/4 inch, or was it the 6 inch or the 12 inch? What was your interest at that time?
I like the 12 inch and the 3/4 inch as well. There were something magical about it, especially when the 12-inch Darth Vader or even Chewbacca. They have some Han Solo, Leia, and the Jawas with the light, the orange light. You can usually torch and you can play with that. And the 3/4 inch that the effect is with you can put them in the spaceships and play sets. So that was definitely the thing I liked the most.
And is there a particular series or movie that you're a fan of?
I'm really dedicated to the original trilogy. That's what I like the most because they were part of my childhood. The other stuff, like the new Disney series or the other prequel or the Disney trilogy as well, it's something less interesting for me because I was not the same age. Definitely, what I like to collect information about the movies, like they were made, stuff like that. I'm really interested about the original trilogy.
Okay, great, great. And your collection or the items that you have collected over time, actually, let me take a step backwards. Do you have any of those toys from when you were a kid?
Yes, I do. I was keeping everything, and it was a fight with my mom because she want me to she throw away my box, and I was so pissed off because I love the design, you know, the Star Wars logo, the silver one, and then when the Empire Strikes Back came, you have this reddish and silver frame all around the box, and it was kind of magic, and also the picture. I remember the time when Mego came with Superman and Hulk and all that kind of other toy range. They have only, of course, a drawing, but when Star Wars came, when the packaging came, you have the action figures picture, you know, the actual character from the movie. So I love to keep, I play with the figures, of course, but I love to keep the card back because I have the picture, and also behind the card back, I used to mark each figure's missing for the next time I go into the toy shop, you know.
Bring it with you. Yeah, reference.
Yeah,
And do
the
you,
reference, exactly.
of those original characters that you might have been given, approximately how many of those original items might you still have on hand?
Most of them, they are behind me. Let's say 95% of the action figures you see there, they were from my childhood.
Wow.
And these ones,
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, most
Impressive.
of them. And these
Wow.
ones, they came from the UK, from Belgium, and also from Germany because back in the days, especially between 1979 through 1982, it was a bit of a gap over here in France. The subdivision or General Mills in France called Meccano didn't bring much, especially during the Empire Strikes Back era, basically. And this is where it was difficult to get, like, for example, Princess Leia, Bespin Gone, or Luke Skywalker, Bespin Fatigue. It was also pretty tough to get those kind of figure. It was actually regular in America, but not for us in France. But in England or Belgium, they have plenty. Like in Christmas 1980, my dad bring me a Tauntaun, which is like it never been released back home. So when I have it for Christmas 1980, having the Tauntaun was something amazing to me as a kid because I have no idea it was existing, and that for me was absolutely awesome to have it for Christmas.
So
Very
there was an obvious backlog, for lack of a better description, of
Mhm.
product not just coming from America, but product coming out of England as well.
Yeah, because in England they actually were producing most of these spaceships and playsets and vehicles. That was the setting of the way everything small came from Asia, and everything big like the spaceship Millennium Falcon, they were manufactured in the UK and they were shipped over Europe. That's why how it was the business plan. That's how it was set over here.
Would the English manufacturer have been a licensed Hasbro or Kenner
It was it
business?
was a it was the name of the sub licensee for the UK was Palitoy,
I was just going to ask if it was Palitoy.
and Palitoy was in charge for actually with France as well. France and Spain, they were also manufacture some part of the X-Wing, for example, because it was the main spaceships sold out all over Europe as it is Luke Skywalker spaceships. So you have those this manufacture facility, but the main one was based in the UK, and they were actually doing the AT-AT. In France in 1985, when actually Palitoy factory shut down, they took over for the Imperial Shuttle. So the Imperial Shuttle was one of the spaceships 100% made in France for the whole Europe market,
Wow.
while Spain was producing TIE fighter and X-Wing fighter.
Amazing wealth of knowledge right here. I'm learning a lot. This is
You
great.
had mentioned a few moments ago the product not coming out of England, and there was some stuff I thought you said that came out of France and out of Germany.
Yeah. The thing is, each country in Europe had its own market business. So when for every action figures they were coming from Asia, then actually in Germany they have they came straight from America. They had a lot of Kenner packaging with a German instruction sheet inside the box. That was the only difference you can get. The toy was manufactured in Cincinnati, like Land of the Jaguars, for example. I remember like 20 years ago, bought a Land of the Jaguars in Germany. It was the exact same with the Kenner box, but inside it was an instruction sheet in German. And in Belgium, for example, they have Palitoy, they have Kenner. They also have their own brand, Clipper. Clipper was the equivalent to Palitoy or Meccano in France. And they were taking over the business for Holland, Luxembourg, and Belgium. The name was Clipper.
So
Clipper.
can you today find product that has the name Clipper on the packaging at all?
It's pretty hard to get. You only have it on Star Wars packaging from 1978 through 1980.
Wow.
Then when The Empire Strikes Back came through in Belgium, you only have the Kenner one.
Interesting. We did an interview a couple back with a fellow by the name of Alfonso out of Mexico City, and he educated us as to the numerous different manufacturers of the same product coming from different places, and his collection had multiples of the same figure, but there were different suppliers or manufacturers. And so it sounds like that's the case there in Europe as well, yes?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you look at the business plan as it was planned back in the day, you have action figures, focus on the action figures, they're coming from Asia, but you also have some action figures made in Spain. But that was part of the second part of the 80s when actually it was only Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back action figures who were actually manufactured at 100% in Spain, and they are a bit different. The color or the shape are the same, but you can see like some slightly different of colors, or the plastic material is a bit different as well.
Are those the Gaslight? Is that branding?
Gaslight is from Brazil.
Oh, okay. That's what Alfonso was talking about, some Gaslight. What is it called in Spain? What was that manufactured?
It's called BPB. That's the name of the company.
BPB. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting. I want to follow up on something you said earlier. You said that there was a little bit of a gap collecting between your childhood and your adult, career side of things. In your teenage years, there's a gap. During that gap, was there still an interest in Star Wars? Did you think you were still going to be a collector later in the day, or what was happening in your head then?
I was still thinking of Star Wars, but not as a collector anymore. I mean, the last action figures I bought, it was back in 1986. It was a Yak face with a tri-logo packaging. And that was the very last action figures I bought, and I was around 15 years old. So I was jumping to some more other interest, but all my toys remain with the boxes and everything. They were in the attics of my parents. And it's like 3 years later, because of the frustration I had as a kid, I could not complete and could not collect them all. Like you could see it back on the Kenner packaging. It came back when I stopped in my business life. I put back everything in my bedroom, and with the idea to go back to the toy shop, like try to find out where I can get my collection done. But it was like back in 1988, back in 1989. It was like pure desert, nothing. And Star Wars was so behind. It was the time for RoboCop, like movie like RoboCop, I mean, and that kind of stuff. So Star Wars was history at the time. But still, I was trying to get some information, couldn't get anything. So my first idea was to write to Kenner. So from 1989 to 1990, I start to send mail over the world, like when I could get an address to Cincinnati. And at that time, you have to wait at least 2 or 3 weeks to get an answer. So I remember that day, it was like November 1989. I received a letter uh, from Cincinnati with Kenner on it. So, oh my God, that's fantastic. I'm going to get something, you know. But unfortunately, well, my English was not that good at the time. I was learning English at that year, but I realized it was negative answer. Saying like, we don't have anything left. So why don't you write to England to Tonka? Because at the time it was Tonka. We were talking over Kenner and Parker in 1989. So I wrote to the address they gave it to me, which was actually the old address from Palitoy. But Palitoy was bankrupt in 1985. But it was the same supplier, factory position, but owned by Tonka at the time. And then they give me the same answer as the States, you know, why don't you write to America? Because we run out of items.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I will never get through.
Amazing memories.
And from an old magazine, I found the Banter Track address, the fan club in California. So what I did, and you should not do that anymore, I put a $5 notes in the mail and then send it to California to the Banter Track address. And 2 months later, it came back with the $5 note, but with a stamp said "Return to sender."
Wow.
It was not existed anymore.
Sending cash internationally.
And so what saved me was actually I went to a model kit shop and bought a Star Destroyer. There was a commemorative edition at the time between 1989 and 1990, and they had a Lucasfilm fan club subscription flyer inside. And I said, oh, that could be interesting. So I wrote to the and sent my credit card number. And a few weeks later, I received my very first Lucasfilm fan club. And inside there was a few ads. And then the first ad I found was a guy in Kentucky called Steve Denny. Maybe you know him. And he wrote a catalog, fanzine catalog called SOS Star Wars. So that was the best magazine ever for me. And the very first order I did as a young collector was a patrol dewback, because we never had it, a loose one, and also a forlorn, a Bespin security guard black, and the Cloud Car pilot, because those 3 action figures were never released in France. So that was my very first order. For a couple of a few bucks, I've got those figures at home, and it was my very first packaging from the States. It was spring 1990, and I was so happy because that was completing my Empire Strikes Back action figures collection, and having the dewback was also something I was really keen to get.
For sure. Now, hold on. I just want to make sure I understand your story here. You got that Lucasfilm fan club membership, and in there was a magazine. And I guess in the back of the magazine, there was almost like classified ads of people selling things, or
it was actually inside between interviews or anything about Star Wars. You had those small ads where people said, please, you can write to me because I have Star Wars stuff to sell. And so here's my address. And so I was writing to those guys, and they were sending back their catalog, and then I can check their catalogs, and this is how I make the order.
You got the catalog through the fan club and then ordered the stuff. Very interesting. I mean, obviously this is before the internet, and you couldn't just go on eBay and find this stuff.
Exactly.
Amazing. And John, why Star Wars? I mean, you talked about other things that were out there, and you know, as a young boy, you could have interest in this, you could have interest in that. What was it about Star Wars that made you say, this is what I want to collect, this is what I want to build?
Oh, because I love the toys, basically, and the Star Wars movie I was so fan of the movie itself. I mean, when the Empire Strikes Back came through in 1980, it was also something amazing. And during our childhood, it was really like something we follow the story. And I was also so interested about all the guys, how they're making the special effects. From the very beginning, I was amazed by their job. We have some making of talk show where they were explaining how they were making the special effect. And that was something I was always interesting about. So maybe this is why I was so interested about Star Wars. I like the storyline, the mythology, and all that kind of things. But remember, as I remember as a kid, I loved so much. I was so curious about how they make the flying the snow speeders and how the at walked and all that kind of things. And I was a big fan of Phil Tippett's job basically and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
John Mono suit the way he was drawing. I'm working in the car design industry for 34 years. So when I collect, and I was always interesting to see how they proceed, like making a sketch, drawing first, have a first draft, making a very a mock-up, how they do those stuff. Uh, maybe this is why I was so interesting about.
Yeah, interesting. Kind of that angle of it. I mean, Jim and I, we've had that question to so many different collectors, and it seems like we get a different answer every time I ask it. So very unique, very interesting. Thank you for that.
What car company?
I work for 17 different brands, so all over Europe, European or Asiatic company. I worked for Porsche in Germany. I work for Rolls-Royce Bentley in England. In France, I work for Peugeot, Citroën. These kind of brand only they were only in Europe actually, or the Citroën, the DS was known in the States. And also, I start my as a model maker. I'm a model maker and sculptor. So I start with physical model, and now I do digital model basically. So I jump from one system way to making models to another one. But I start with a company called Renault, which maybe doesn't sound anything to you.
Did you say Renault?
Renault.
Renault, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You do?
We know Renault.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
That would have been my guess as who you, when Jim asked, I was thought, no, it's probably Renault, but then you said 17 different ones. I was like, oh wow, okay. Renault's got to be in there, but sounds like the first one.
So I'd like to take a couple of steps backwards in the conversation and go back to the various manufacturers in Europe of Star Wars stuff. So you had Clipper out of France, you had BPB out of Spain. Aside from Palitoy, did you mention somebody else in England?
No, Palitoy was the only one in charge. For the 12-inch figures, it was Dennis Fisher who was in charge of importing large action figures, which is very unique actually, because they also you have Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and R2-D2 12-inch. They have a Palitoy stamp on the actual box, which is the very same box as you have in the States, but Palitoy and the Palitoy address on it. But all the rest of the large action figures, they have a Dennis Fisher logo instead of Palitoy. So that's the difference. And the three main manufacturing in Europe was based in the UK, in England, Exeter, Colville, and the city of Calais in the north of France. And in Spain, I don't remember the city, but that was the three main factory place for Europe, basically. And
You mentioned a German manufacturer.
in Germany, they import. They never manufacture anything.
And then I every once in a while hear of a product coming out of Poland, but it's often referenced with not Confederate, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Bootleg.
Bootleg, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's what they were. They were bootleg. But I'll let John. Yeah.
They were completely unofficial because at the time they were behind the Iron Curtain, so they could not get anything, and so they have to do by their own what they could get. Sometimes they could, I don't know how they get some iron, injection mold casters where they're from Turkey, because in Turkey they used to build quite a lot of things as well. They have the manufactory and they collect mold from Hong Kong or maybe from Macau, and they change a bit, but I mean, also they have the blueprint anyway, and it was cheaper to send over the blueprint and to manufacture at the facility, because shipping a iron mold is quite heavy and expensive. So they were basically working on their own. They have the technology for doing it anyway, so they're just collecting the information and they're recreating a mold.
Right.
Funny one.
And using some kind of plastic and some kind of paint, and that's, yeah, I mean, they're very, very unique, but it wasn't it wasn't, a full-on manufacturing process and, packaging and all that.
Yeah, pure unofficial items.
Right.
How easy or difficult is it to find those variations, manufacture variations?
It's pretty tough because those were not that manufacturing mass production like you can have in for the States market or for European market, Western European market at the time. So it was, you can still have a few of them, but they're locally kept by collectors. But you don't see them pretty often, to be honest.
Mhm.
Interesting. Aside from the German, the English, the Spanish, the French, and the Polish manufacturers, who else might have been making something?
In Mexico, they manufacture many items starting from the 1983. 1983 is actually a very important year for Kenner because that's the year where the mass production is at its maximum production. It's over. It's getting over Hong Kong, which is over. Hong Kong is just surrounded by Mattel, Hasbro, Mego production. So they already start to make deals in China on the other side of the border when the very first factory start to be built in the early 80s. And this is why in 1983 you start to see, especially on Star Wars action figures, made in China and also made in Macau, Macau and Taiwan. Well, Taiwan was, you can find some Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and R2-D2 back in 1978, but they were producing for Australia and New Zealand. So this is why over in Europe and America and Canada, you had most of them, 99%, they were made in Hong Kong action figures. And the made in Taiwan are more rare, more scarce to get for the original Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia from the 1978 because they were shipped over Australia and New Zealand. So these one are a bit more rare because of that kind of production. But then between 1978 and 1982, 99% of the action figures, they were manufactured in Hong Kong. Some of them they were sending to the UK in spare parts, which is like Hong Kong didn't have the time to assemble every action figures. So they were sending over in England, and in England they have some facilities where you can add the figures, and you have some employee that put arms. Don't forget to put only one left arm and one right arm on each side of the figures, and the same for the legs. But they were actually helping that way for the mass production. Was the demanding was 30% plus every year. Wow. So it was massive. Yeah. And then in 1983, when Return of the Jedi came through, you already have 50 action figures on the side, plus 17 new action figures. It was the very first time where Kenner offer so much action figures for for a new film. Before that, you have like 10, 12, 9 action figures every year. But from that, when Return of the Jedi released come through, you had 17 action figures, 15 action figures in 1984, and 15 action figures in 1985. Not counting, don't forget the musician, the Size Neutral Rebel Band, and with Droopy McCool and the clarinetist and those guys from the Jabba's Palace. So that was massive.
And Max Rebo.
Max Rebo, exactly, the pianist.
So 3 questions come to mind. First of all, George Lucas either really, we know he was a visionary, but he either really had a feeling about merchandising product, or this is way beyond what he ever expected. Number 2, I think you said there was 4 or 5 Chinese providers or manufacturers, some of which the product was going to, say, Australia and never came to the US. The leading question is do you believe that Kenner had any idea as to how explosive, I think would be the word, the providing of product was going to be for them?
No, I don't think so because I met Jim Shrangen. He was the first designer who he was actually the man who believed in Star Wars and made it happen between Kenner and Lucasfilm and Fox. Because if you put it back, everything like winter 1977, this is where the agreement was signed actually. And at the time, nobody wanted any Star Wars things, and which is like Charles Lippincott and Mark Pivert for Fox. They were both marketing people. So Charles Lippincott, it was the marketing manager for Lucasfilm, and Mark Pivers was the marketing manager for the Fox. And those guys they had to do the job for all this toys, everything for posters and everything, because George Lucas was busy to finish his film at the time. So those two persons are a key in the market for all the business for everything but movie, basically. So when Jim Shrangen started to get interested by Star Wars, it's because he read Starlog magazine, the number 2 from November 1976. And at the time, he found a few sentences, not even an article, but a few sentences like George Lucas was making a new science fiction movie. And he started to get interested because he loved THX 1138. He saw that a few years before. And as a science fiction fan, he said, whoa, if George Lucas making a new science fiction movie, I have to get interested about that because it might be good. So he asked his manager at Kenner if he could get the press book of Star Wars. And now we are February, probably beginning of March 1977 when he got that. And he loved the project. He just had a couple of black and white picture plus a few sheets with the press book and what the Star Wars was all about. And he went back to see his boss, said, look, we have to do it because it's going to be great for the kids and everything. But at the time, the toy company they're not very keen making toys for 2 hours movies. They were like doing $6 Million Man, that kind of things was like for several years. You have one episode per week, so that was perfect for a toy company. But having a license for 2 hours, maybe not. So you have basically half the company against it. But Jim was so insistent. Bernard Loomy, the boss of Kenner, said, okay, I pay you a ticket for Los Angeles from Cincinnati. Have a look and let me know if it's good or not. And Jim arrived at the middle with the finishing shooting on the blue screen, the Millennium Falcon and the X-Wing fighter, the dogfight basically. And when he came through, he said, oh, by the way, too bad you didn't come yesterday because we blew up the Death Star. and Jim was just amazed. And also Charlie Pincott was so happy to finally get somebody interesting by his project. Said, well, do you want the blueprint? Do you want the picture? Please take everything. Go back to Cincinnati. Start to make something for us. We love that. You were interesting about the project. So then Jim flew back to Cincinnati. They start to make some Kid Bash with the adventure people from Fisher-Price because he already thought from the very beginning like 12-inch was too big. You cannot have a Millennium Falcon for 12-inch figures, That's impossible. So he started to work on this adventure people from Fisher-Price because they were about three quarter and a half inch. So that's how they started. And they went back and signed the agreement in March, in the middle of March 1977. And then Jim was invited in the May 1st, 1977. He was part of the 200 first people in the world in San Francisco to watch Star Wars. And when he saw it, he jumped through a phone booth, called Cincinnati, said, guys, we got something amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a lot of history.
Very informative.
Right,
it's an amazing story. And I was lucky to meet him. And I put he was kind enough to let me put his interview in my book. So I was so happy we become friends and we can change a few messages now through the internet. And these guys, millions of kids around the world can say, thank you, Jim Shrangen, because he's the $6 Million Man, basically.
Sure.
Fantastic. So, as a kid starting off, you were fascinated. You were so hungry for anything Star Wars related, toy wise, that it was a real challenge to get through that period of time where you actually were able to get it. So the motivation at that time was to recapture some scene maybe you had seen on the screen or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, like we when I had Yoda was definitely with Luke Skywalker, my favorite characters. I really enjoyed the possibility to recreate the. My dad bring me the hand puppet Yoda from Germany. It was the Kenner one imported straight from the States with the English packaging. But having Yoda as a puppet, it fit very well with the 12-inch action figures actually. So I was very happy to add it with my collection. And my dad is really a big part of it because every time there's something missing, he went to England for work, and when he went back, he bring me the Land of the Jawas, who was missing in the market and all that kind of stuff. So to me as a kid, England, Belgium, and Germany was wonderland because they had everything we could not get back home. So recreating the world of Star Wars with all these things, I was used to get the Star Wars English packaging from the very beginning, from England, from Belgium, because they have the very same packaging as you guys you had in the States. So I was really connected with those kind of things from the very beginning.
And aside from, I guess my question is, at what point did you go from reconnecting with your childhood and things you saw on the screen to, let's just say, more of a commercial venture, whether it be an investment or what?
Oh, it came when probably in the year 1990 when I start my business life, because I realized I discovered in Paris. I start to live in Paris, and I found a comic shop where they have importing items from the States. And I remember pretty well having my very first carded figures in the day, who was actually 10 times the price I used to pay as a child. And I thought, gee, that's quite expensive, you know. We used to get like $2.50, $3 an action figures in the mid 80s. And then find those comic shop in Paris where you have it for $30 or $50, and then wow, that's really expensive. So I better get those figures before they get too much, you know, in price too high, because I will never be able to buy. And I have two books. I bought the Space Adventure from T.M. Tonbush. It was a book published in 1990, I believe, and I could find a lot of information about a lot of toys range, science fiction toys range, like for Star Trek or Space 99 TV series and Buck Rogers whatsoever. But the section for Star Wars was huge, and I could find a lot of stuff. Like, for example, our tri-logo packaging in Europe stopped with the card back from 1984, which is like, if you didn't knew somebody from the toy business, you never knew how many action figures were released at the time. In 1985, we have Yak Face, we have a Man, but the back of the card was still the one from 1984. So we never knew. I mean, I never knew until I've got the Kenner packaging, the Power of the Force. The first one I bought was in a toy shop in Paris. When I look back, 92 back, and I see the complete set of action figures. And I said, all right, I never knew about Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper or Han Solo Carbonite Chamber and a Man, never seen before. Before I went to that shop in Paris, when I find that about the complete set, and I was back in 1990.
Interesting. Yeah, those card backs really kind of informed what figures were available, because sometimes you'd go to the shops even here in America and you wouldn't find any of those figures. I remember when I was a kid and seeing a Monomon in the back of the card, I was like, I don't even think that's a Star Wars figure. I mean, where is he in the movie? And I never saw him on the shelves or anything back in the day either. You mentioned a book, and I do want to have like a bit of a conversation about the book. Giving us a little bit of a history about the book that you wrote and where all that came from.
Well, that book is about 240 pages, and it came from the very beginning. I think when I started collecting and make connection with America, I wanted to write back to people to explain the story of how the market in France. This is how it started in my mind. It was back in 1981, 1982. So I have this thing in my mind for years and years. And the definitely what it taught me to make that book about Kenner toy, it was to show to the French audience what was in America, because we didn't have most of the toys like we just spoke about. So I really wanted first to write it only in French, but then when I start to publish on the social network, or back in 2017, I think this is what the very, very first time I make advertising about that book. I was planning to do it and everything. People from America, Australia said, "Hey, we would like to have it." And they were interested about the fact I made some QR code with it, which is like each item had a QR code like this here. And with your smartphone, you scan it with your cell phone. And when you go back to my YouTube channel, where you can see a description, you can see actually the item in movement. So the basic idea was to put the history of Kenner inside the book, like the Jim Engine story, for example. And it was like, basically the topic of the book is to show every action figures, playsets, and vehicles as seen in the Star Wars trilogy. And then chronologically, year by year, you see what was produced by Kenner, like 12 first action figures in 1978. In 1980, you have the Tauntaun and everything for new generation, not just for collectors, but for people who are interested about the toy history, and also for collectors. So this is how I started to make the book. And also I wanted to make like some pages, like you have the blueprint aspect, like here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Which is a blueprint with size information to understand the proportion. And I took it with a certain perspective, that way you can see the box in a certain angle, that way you can see how big it is, not just a flat picture of it. I wanted people to understand what are the proportion, what are the size of the item. That's what I wanted to put in the book.
So you're saying like this book here is really like a textbook of sorts to the French people, saying, let me educate you on
somehow,
the
yes,
Star Wars merchandise that came out. It is a fascinating book. I received this about a week ago. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for sending me the link where I could purchase this. It's awesome. I had a chance to go through it. The first thing I'll point out is that it's autographed inside by you. So thank you very much. I guess you did that for all the books that you're selling here in America. I did. Obviously, we'll put a link in the description for your book. So if people here in America or in France or anywhere around the world want to get the book, they'll be able to go to a direct link in the description and order the book themselves, with probably the autograph in there also. But it's a great introduction to the Kenner people. And I just want to say that I really appreciate that you did that side of it, kind of in the forward side of the book, the story side of the book, before you got into the pictures and everything, and really highlighting those Kenner employees, those engineers that made these toys, which are just really amazing toys, the way they move, the way everything fits together. It's just remarkable. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you so much to mention that, because to me it was important to do something special for what they did. The dedication, you can see they were making toys. You can see the sculpt of the action figures. They were made for playing with, and this is something, probably this is why we still talking about now. This I see my boy, my son is 6 years old. He's crazy about those toys. Toys who are nearly 50 years old, and he's 6 years old, but still talk to him, because they talk to kids and to the kids behind us, inside us, basically. And this is really also one of the motivation I wanted to do that book. And the book was like 4,500 sample, and I made 2,000 in English, and now there's only 55 left in America for the American market, because in the very first
get them fast,
order
people.
now.
It's time to get it, because the thing is that all the books are now in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they are here since about a year and a half, and now I'm running out of money to pay the storage fees. It's start to get an issue for me, unfortunately. So this is why I mentioned on a social network, please guys, help me to clear off the stock, because I need to pay the bill.
Right.
And they are here for you guys. I shipped over this to America for you guys to get a cheaper. You have USPS medium mail, it's about $5, or you can have a priority mail. And right now I'm making a 50% discount on the actual USPS shipping fees, which is like, it's not $20 for zone 8, priority mail zone 8, it's $10. And also there's a discount on the book price as well. So basically you save $20 compared to the usual price. And if you use media mail service, it's only $5. So it's about, I think, $58. My website is in euro currency, but it's about the same nearly.
Basically, what John is saying is go order a book right now. I mean, that's
Please
basically
do.
what he's saying. Let's sell out of the US one so he doesn't have to pay the storage charges of keeping those books here in America. It's really a fantastic book. The other thing I'll mention is I noticed, like, like you put even like the variations in there. You have like the Han Solo, the original Han Solo figure with the big head and the small head, and you talk about the two variations in that. All of the vehicles, the images that you have, it's not just the vehicles themselves and the box itself, but here's all the inserts that were in the box. Even like, here's like the cardboard cutouts that were in the box. I mean, it's so specific. It's so juicy. I'm soaking it all up. I really do love it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're
Tell
welcome.
us a little bit about how you produced the book.
It took me 10 years to do it, basically. What was when I really wanted to do it is when I heard on the radio, I was coming back from work, I heard Disney took over Lucasfilm. That was the click in my mind in 2012, and I said, okay, everything I have in mind, let's put it on the book now. That was the moment of point of no return, basically, when I start to say, okay, I have to think about the layouts, what kind of item I want to show in the book, and about the QR code and everything. And that was about 5 years first of work, where basically to draw what kind of book layout I wanted to get, the blueprint idea, also collecting some pieces I didn't have. Like, I realized if I really want to complete a set of 12-inch action figures, some of them, they were 20 back, they were not 12 back, and I really wanted to have a 12 back. So I massively went to eBay from 2012 to 2013 to pick it up what was missing for the book. When I have it that, I made a big inventory, start to read also a lot of information I couldn't find on the web. Like, I think I have a subscription with the Herald Tribune or the Washington Post, and I was focused on the article during December, November, when they were talking about Christmas. There was always an article about something wrong happening with the toy business. They could not deliver on time. They were running out of product and everything. Like back in 1978, they have problem with the remote control R2-D2. Everybody wanted that for Christmas. It was pretty hard to get. Like when a toy shop in the States, in the middle town, they ask for 80 items, they only receive 16 R2-D2, and they were sold out in a day. Yeah. And then the people start to get suspicious and wait, I just want that robot. You have it like 16 in the morning and they're all gone. Yeah. So I love that kind of story because there's men behind, it creates connection with the items.
And then all of the pictures that you have in the book, then are these all your items, or did you kind of get these pictures from other people? How did that work?
No, I made everything by myself. This is why I wanted to collect first before making the book. This is why it took me 45 years, basically. But then it took me 9 weekends of shooting between 12 to 14 hours. And there's about like 4,000 pictures, 4,500 pictures. And I add in the book something like 3,000 pictures because I really wanted to have a high quality book with a good pictures with it, plus the video I did afterward.
So, I mean, are all of these things still in your collection then? Is this is your collection?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everything
Wow.
been shot, everything from my collection.
Amazing. What a collection that is.
I have to say, as an entrepreneur, there is nothing more exciting than commitment. Once you make that decision, it's 110% going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such an exciting feeling. It's such an exciting feeling. I'm just, it makes me all giddy and excited.
I'm blown away. This is really a remarkable accomplishment. Absolutely. And then
But
to be
also,
able, and then on top of that, you talked about the QR codes and
yeah.
scanning with your phone. It links you to your YouTube channel and says, okay, here's this toy, here's the Millennium Falcon, here's the land speeder, and here
Mhm.
it is in video, actually showing it to you, the dimensions, how it works, the different things. I mean, it goes really just beyond the book itself. Again, so
It
happy that this
goes
is
from a
here. Yeah.
literal
Just thank you for your
publication to
kind
now
word.
a digital, because you got the QR code, and so you're now bringing the internet, the digital age, into the book.
Right.
Yeah, that was also an idea I wanted to connect the best of both worlds, from the physical with the book and the videos, because we have the possibility these days to film or shot everything we want and then to put it on the web and to connect people that way. And that's the good way. When I start to the Kickstarter to collect the money to have the first edition, the first publishing, it was amazing to me because I collect the money in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And it was summer 2021, and I start to advertise on the web, said, look guys, now I made everything. I had the video was done, the book layout was done. I even went back to school to learn book layout, to offer a proper book layout to people, to learn Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, how to make because I really wanted to have a professional book layout, and then for people to read a proper book. So during the COVID, during that very moment in 2021, I went back for 9 months to school to learn web design, but also how to make prints. And then I thought all the work were behind me. So summer 2021, book layout ready to print, collect the money, but then the real issue starts with the printing company because they delayed the project to get printed. It should be ready for Christmas 2021 and it came for Easter 2022. But they pushed away my projects every time, and there was a big issue in January 2022. At the end of the month, I realized they screwed up with me. They have done absolutely nothing. While they should have printed the book in October 2021. And I have 300 people behind me with the Kickstarter, and they started to say, look, if you want to get your book, it will be for April 2022. I said, look, now you're talking about extra 3 months while I've been waiting for 3 months already.
Right.
And also they asked me extra charge because they realized between the French version and the English version, they could not change the text as it was playing before. They realize like you can change easily. Like it's a good lesson if you one day you do a book in different language. On black and white, they can change easily. But when you have colors, like in my book, you have the blueprints. So blue and text in white, they can't change it. They have to do like they have to reprint a second one. And this is what happened. So they charged me 6 grand more just to do it. And I have to accept it because I could not let people behind me who trust me. And I felt so bad. I said, no way. I'm going to do like Spielberg or George Lucas. I will not give up. That thing has to be done. No way.
Amazing commitment. Right.
And this is how it happened. And in April 2022, when I received the very first book, that was a release, and I thought, and it was the first time I could hold the book in my hand. I was just like, well, it's real. Now it's existing. And that very moment was magical because from 2012 to 2022, 10 years passed between okay, I'm going to do it and having the book in my hand.
Going from concept to physical unit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Such an exciting feeling. Such an exciting feeling.
Isn't this cool, Jim? Talking to John
it.
right here. Yeah, this is great.
I've been fortunate to have acquired 2 US patents down the road. And it is so exciting as an inventor or producer to accomplish something and have that physical product in your hand after all that time.
And I have a separate YouTube channel besides just the Star Wars collections and displays. I also host my own YouTube channel called JAK in the Box. And one of my real inspirations of why I started JAK in the Box was to show future generations and current generations all of the Star Wars figures. That's kind of really where my focus was. All of the original, I call them 100 figures that came out between 1978 and 1985. And I just wanted to make sure that I documented all of those in a video. People years from now could possibly go back to the videos and see this. But you were able to do all of that in this one book, plus have the YouTube channel to then go and say, here's the figures, here's the vehicles, here's everything that came out during those years. And it's remarkable. It really is. It's something that's going to be around. I think 100 years from now, people will still be looking at this.
I thank you so much.
Yeah.
So a few questions at this point. What do you believe is the main reason the book publisher dragged his feet?
I believe with the COVID time, they have issue with having paper pulp, raw material. That was an issue, and also this is one of the reasons the price, the book price sounds very expensive somehow, but at the time the price increased almost by 10. And when I reprint in summer 2023, it was even another 25% more. And the second run was like 3,000 books reprinted during summer 2023. I didn't have any Kickstarter at the time to pay. I have to go to the bank and I ask for a bank loan, and this is the one I pay today. So this is why I beg you to buy the book, because it helped me to pay this thing. But I believe the reason why, it's because my project to them was too small, and they have bigger project ahead of them for Christmas 2021. And I thought, okay, it's only, at the time it was 1,500 sample. And they thought like, okay, we have more important books to print than this one. And I believe this is why they play basically with me and they use the COVID problem as an excuse, which was right at some point. But at the end, they push it too hard on this one. And this is why my book was delayed in terms of production.
Understand. Yeah, I would say that locking people in their homes for 3 months, 6 months, suddenly you had a lot of authors that were coming out and wanted to self-publish or have publishing through this company. And it just became a huge backlog, is probably my guess. And I think you're right. It's like, hey, my order isn't, I'm not trying to get 10,000 books. I'm trying to get 1,500. And they're like, hey, let's do the 10,000 first. Yeah.
Obviously, this is what happened, I believe. And also Christmas time is a very busy time for printers. And usually they do, this is what I learned because I was doing everything from scratch. It was some kind of lesson to me as well. And I realized if you really want to get something print for Christmas, you have to do it in spring or summer later. And that because from September to October, they're busy, like doing Christmas card or shipping stuff also. This is the biggest busy time of the year where everything have to be shipped all over the world. So Santa is basically pretty busy, and they can't produce in mass production items, basically.
Well, a follow-up to that would be, now with your knowledge of the first book, is there a second book in the works?
There is one, but it will be about, but I can't really speak about that because it's going to be official this time, because this one is a non-official book. It will be with a friend from the UK. And that will be more on the movie part, on the movie side, basically. So I hope now we need to have the agreement from Disney and stuff like that. But it's something I can't really spoke about. I wish I could because I'm very excited about that project. This is really something I'm counting a lot to me and to my friend in England as well. So we both. Very excited about that project, but now we both have our lives on the side. It's pretty tough to I realize with this one, well, we have the family matters and we have your own business, and plus doing this was like you don't have much time to sleep. So for the next one, I really hope so it can happen to become real like this one. It will be another kind of book. But I can't really speak about that yet.
No problem. I think what you've mentioned already is enough of a teaser to get us interested, and then the trailer will come out a little later once all the everything's agreed to, and then eventually the second book. So we'll look forward to that.
As a inventor myself or an entrepreneur, I've said this many times before. education is not cheap.
No.
You'll end up spending a lot of money trying to
Mhm.
get accomplished what you thought you could get accomplished, but you learn every step of the way. And
Yeah.
so, to your advantage, project number 2 has a lot of insight into it now based on the experience you've had in the past. But as a business person, it's challenging to come up with a product. Take, for example, you mentioned earlier, Palatoy went out of business. I mean, they were the European version of, we'll call them Kenner, even though they're not related. You would think, as Kenner did, having this huge demand for their product, that they would have no financial issues. But the realities are twofold. To provide those products, you've got to spend money and send money all over the place to have different things done. And can you imagine the people in the purchasing department at Kenner USA and trying to write purchase orders for 4 or 5 different manufacturers in China? You've got the development of Japan, you've got the development of Hong Kong, now you've got the European people. I think my first question in regards to the business part would be, why did Palatoy go out of business?
That's a very good question, because when you put it back, Palitoy was always very careful at the very beginning. For example, if you take the Land of the Jawas playset, the Cantina playset, and the Dead Star playset, which is the most well-known, the cardboard half dome, half sphere. All these things were dedicated to the UK market, who was 10 times smaller than the US one. This is why they built it that way. The reason why the Land of the Jawas have a thinner cardboards, and also the landscape, the desert one, is not the same. It's a system called the thermoform. It's not a plastic injected one, compared to the States. Why they did that in America? Because the market was big enough because in the car industry or in the toy industry, manufacture a actual iron mold, injection plastic, is the 80% of the cost. From the business point of view, when you go through that kind of manufacturing, you have to understand behind it costs millions of dollars to produce this mold, or are not forever. You can do like 500,000 pieces, and then you have to cast another one. Hong Kong is built on manufactured that way, because if you take a picture from 1947 from the Hong Kong Bay, and if you take it from Google today, Hong Kong is twice bigger, and it was built on those mass production iron cast mold. So back to Palitoy, they started very slowly. Then Land of the Jawas, so Cantina, was only for the UK markets. So this is why they use this slight difference, which is now collectors are very keen to get a Palitoy Cantina, because it's a different one from the one you get to America. But then why the collapse? It's because of the middle of in 1985, first General Mills left over all these suppliers in Europe, Kenner as well. It is the year when the factory in Cincinnati also shut down, and then Mexico start to take over the A-wing fighter, the Tatooine skiff. They are made in Mexico. They are not made in Cincinnati. So it's all globally. They start to change the way of producing items. It was cheaper to get it from Asia or Mexico. Back from 1978 through 1983, 84, it was cheaper to have action figures manufactured in Asia, and the big one locally, like Cincinnati. Even in Canada, they used to manufacture snow speeders as well, And I remember found some 12-inch Chewbacca and Darth Vader with made in Korea on the back of it, Yeah.
Really?
So there was at one point,
Wow.
there was all these places in the world, and also if you take some of the
Alfonso, did you hear that? Korean manufacturer.
He needs some of those.
He was our guy from Mexico with the wild collection. So I'm pointing that out to him. Sorry for the
And you have also the land speeder from Australia. toys, they were manufactured back there. So you have three different type of land speeder. You have the one from Kenner, you have the one from Australia, and you have the one without opening bonnet from Palitoy, who was actually manufactured for Europe as well. Because back in the day in France, I remember having my very first land speeder. The bonnet was not opening, and the silver part on the side was a sticker compared to the US one, where you can open the bonnet and you have like stickers inside to get the engine. And on the side, it's actually a silver chrome plastic part compared to the one. And the difference with the Australian one, you can also find in Canada. They have all the stripes. They are not painted. They are stickers.
Interesting.
Very
A
interesting.
lot of differences, right? And Jim, to kind of go off your question as well, is like, why did Palitoy file for bankruptcy in 1985, 1986? That was also, the last Star Wars movie came out in 1983. And there was no
That's
plans
right.
for another Star Wars movie. And so much
Yeah.
was invested in Star Wars. And, kids started to get out of age of buying them. And there wasn't as big of a collector community. And I think they just saw the writing on the wall. It's like, we can't continue what we've been doing over the past 6-7 years going forward. We're just going to have to file for bankruptcy. And even Kenner eventually sold to Hasbro. I think in like 1994, they continued with other things, but there was those 10 years of dark years of Star Wars,
Yeah.
the dark ages where we had no toys, maybe some like Bendums and some micro machines. But
Yeah.
eventually, Kenner sold out and Hasbro reinvented the line and they're continuing with it now. But even Kenner kind of went out of business.
I want to come back to the Kenner thing in a moment, but if what I heard there, for as encouraging as the Star Wars line was to Kenner and those toy manufacturers, which I used the word earlier, exploded, and that's literally what happened. Do you believe that those dark years you're referring to was the opposite effect to the toy manufacturers, because they didn't come out with new content and they had put themselves out there with all these different manufacturers to try to keep up, and then all of a sudden there's no demand for the product?
But the thing is, back in 1985, precisely that year, where we have the Power of the Force toy line came through in America. At the very same time, the Kenner designer went to Lucasfilm to offer the possibility to carry on by making the Clone War action figures and playsets and vehicles. You had some archives when you can see a half cut on the back with a huge cannon on the back, and the figures original of the Jedi, they were modified. They would say, look, Star Wars is forever. That was the idea at the time. But when they proposed the showcase with all the prototype of the Clone Wars, at the time, people at Lucasfilm said, sorry, no more Star Wars. There will be no more movie ever. That Star Wars is over. We're going to have the TV series with the Ewoks and the droids. That's it. No more Star Wars movie. And the thing is behind, so Kenner was quite disappointed, and they stopped to get the license at the same time. They have this unique type of license because the contract was actually signed in 1979 after the commercial agreement done in 1977. They were the only one who had the right to produce Star Wars toys. So at the time, it was the interest of Lucasfilm to break through that contract.
I see.
Because then you see what I mean. And also
I
end
just
up
need
with,
some, I just need some clarification. It was
yeah,
Lucas's need to break the contract, did you say?
Lucasfilm.
I believe so.
Yeah, right.
I believe so, because this exclusive contract signed between Lucasfilm and Kenner, it was not to the best advantage to Lucasfilm in business-wise. And this is why it was kind of opportunity. I don't believe that in 1985, when you ask the question to George Lucas, do you think you will do more Star Wars? I believe he will say, no way, because it was like such a racing job for 10 years. He had the divorce and all that kind of thing. So, when Return of the Jedi came through, it was like, that's it, over. Let's do something else. I need to do something else. Then he come back years later. But when Hasbro signed the new contract in 1993, Because if you set back the whole story of Kenner, Kenner started in 1947. Until 1967, they were independent. Then they become part of General Mills at the time where General Mills wanted to have several type of business because they took over Parker as well, you know, the monopoly company and all that kind of stuff. But in 1985, they said no more toy industry because it's not good for us. The business is not constant like in cereal or food stuff like that. This is why they get rid of actually Kenner, Parker, and every kind of game and toys because for them it was not effective business wise. So
Aha.
then,
I had that down here as a note, General Mills, and you just explained it.
yeah,
So they bought out Kenner at one time,
exactly.
and then
They
a
get
few
rid
years
of,
later decided the product line wasn't worthy of continuing, and so they dropped it.
and you had the example, the reason why they decided to get rid of toy company and game company in the early 80s when the electronic games start to show up. um, Parker had the idea to have this new cartridge for Atari, you know, and they make huge amount of money in 1 year. It was like the game Qbert and stuff like that. It was massive, but the year after, let's say like they earned $1 billion, something like that. It was massive. Nobody earned so much money in the business. But the year after, they lose $1 billion. And then this zigzag thing said, okay, we cannot afford that kind of business anymore. This is one of the main reasons why General Mills wanted to get rid of this toys and game company. And it was like in 1985, Parker and Kenner have to merge together, but for 2 years only. In 1987, Tonka took over Kenner Parker. They split both companies. And in 1991, Hasbro took over Tonka.
Question: did you say
Yep.
Tonka?
Tonka.
Tonka, yeah.
Yeah.
As in the metal trucks?
Exactly, yeah.
Hey, explain that over to me again. What Tonka
Yeah.
did what now?
Tonka took over Kenner Parker. They own the both companies. They said, okay, you're part of us now.
The
They're
Parker
part of the
brothers and
group.
Kenner. Yeah.
And was Tonka also a subsidiary of General Mills?
No, not at that
Aha,
time.
aha. So General Mills got rid of Hasbro, not Hasbro, Kenner and
Parker brothers. Yeah.
Yeah,
sold
Parker
them
brothers.
off to Tonka.
Not exactly.
Didn't
because
sell
in-
them.
Yeah.
Kenner and Parker brothers joined together to try to create their own company. That lasted for a few years, and then Tonka came in,
2 years.
or they went to Tonka and said, "Look, we need some help. Can you buy us?" And they bought us, and that's where kind of the story is now. But I think John still has a
Exactly.
little bit more to explain.
Yeah. Kenner Parker were independent for 2 years, 1985, 1987. And 1987, they have some money issues. And like you said, Tonka took over the two companies to help them. But then Tonka started to get issues as well. And that's when Hasbro took over Tonka with Kenner inside. And then Hasbro knew exactly what they were doing because they, oh, hey, we're going to get Kenner with us now. But then when they start to negotiate with Lucasfilm, the percentage was not the same. And they didn't have the exclusivity of making Star Wars toys because then you had Lego start to get in the late 90s. You have Galoob as well. And so they were not like the cake have to be divided. You know? They don't have the exclusivity, and the percentage was far beyond. We don't know exactly how much because Hasbro doesn't communicate on that kind of thing, but we believe it's around the 15 to 20% for Lucasfilm each time a toy is sold on the market since 30 years, because the Power of the Force 2 and the new toy line for Star Wars with Hasbro started in 1995, and they didn't stop since. So we talk about 30 years of Star Wars toys with Hasbro now, which is huge.
It's amazing, right? It's amazing where the line's gone. And my feeling with the 1995 line is that they knew that Lucas was going to come out in 1997 with the special editions. And they were like, let's go ahead and recreate the Star Wars figures for the special editions. And I don't know if they knew at that point that there was the thought of the prequels happening in 1993, 1994. I think it really kind of built on the success of what was going to happen in 1997 if the prequels were going to happen. by I think the time that they were announced and the special edition trailers had come out and there was so much interest in them, I think that's in kind of around like in 1996, Lucas said, let's go ahead and do the prequels. And then obviously Hasbro just kept with it, as John said, all the way up until today, 2025, we're still getting TVC characters and retro collection characters and everything else that Hasbro continues with it. And it's amazing. The story's amazing. And it's all Star Wars starting May 1977.
Exactly. The Big Bang was May 25th, 1977. Yeah.
Right. Really something.
Wow, great information. Great information. I'm learning.
I love talking Star Wars. I could do this all day.
We do.
Let me continue on with some of our questions. In our conversation and with what I've seen so far, I've seen nothing that is graded. What's your thoughts on graded items?
Well, I have nothing graded because I like it that way. And graded is good if you want to sell, to make money with it. That's my idea of it. But graded for, I mean, people like it in their collection that way. Why not? I have nothing against it. It's just my way. I love to have it like they were in the shop. That's what I like to, when I can display my toys, I like to see them that way. But I can understand also for the protection reason. I have all this star case, my action figures are all set that way. But I can understand having the acrylic case. It looked very nice on the display shelf. So it's kind of nice as well to have those figures in this kind of very luxury box, basically. It's really making bright lights around the action figures as well. So I believe both is nice.
In regards to your collection, what is it that you place the greatest importance on? Is it I guess my first question is, you've got a lot of your original stuff. So are you purchasing new items today?
Oh, well, I don't purchase much because I feel very lucky with what I've got today, basically.
Okay.
So I don't feel like buying anything anymore. First, I don't have the space to display already what I have. So having more item will be increasing the problem.
Sure,
But
sure.
to be honest, I feel blessed with what I've got today. I mean, I have most of the childhood toys I could kept with me, and also I have all these things I bought in the early 90s or in the early years 2010 or something like that, with brand new boxes, not sealed, but they're complete. So I'm very happy having a loose one and a brand new one with a very nice box with shiny colors. So I feel blessed, to be honest.
Sure. And I was actually going to ask about loose versus box, because again, in the book, you have photos of all the inserts and everything. So did you buy some of those boxes sealed and you personally had to open them? And what was that like?
Yeah, I did for some of them. For example, for the Dagobah playset, it was pretty tough to get with a foam. This kind of thing is degraded. If you touch it, it glues to your finger today. So that's really a big issue. And I remember that I bought one. It was mint clean, and I left it on the living room table. And at the time, my daughter, she was 5 years old. She put her finger in there. When I went to bed, I completely forgot about that. And I went back in the morning after, said, "What? Oh no." Okay, that's the risk,
Chocolate
So
fingerprints.
I bought another one. I have to buy another one. And this time carefully put it away from the children. And I took the video and shot and everything. So it was cool. So no big issue. But yeah, I remember buying some seal box, not too expensive, because sometimes the price could increase so much. But the advantage with the playset and vehicles, you can get clean box, dry tape. It's an unused item, but the tape on the back is dry, so you can open it without tearing you know what I mean? Take off the tape or with a knife cutting. It's dry anyway, so you just have to pull off the tape, you peel it out, you open it, and you got it.
Right. Interesting. And as far as like, what is your preference? Do you prefer having the items loose and being able to see them, or still kind of the contents all in the box?
I like both, to be honest.
Okay.
To me, they're equal. And the easy way with the vehicles and the playset, you can put them out, put them in, And until they have all the labels and the catalogs and all the instruction sheet inside, I'm happy with that.
Those are the cool things.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
With regards to your collection and what we see behind you, is it contained into one room, or does it spill out into the hallway and down into the living room?
No, only in one room.
And
It's a
whose
deal with my
rules is
wife.
that?
You know?
Whose
No
rules is
Star Wars
that?
stuff outside.
Your display, I see a nice cabinet behind you. Are your items all set somehow? I mean, I can't tell. Are those loose items in front of little shelves, or are they in packages?
They are all loose figures. They all the figures from my childhood. There's a few of them I painted when I was teenage, like for the Rebel Commandos soldier. I put in like a military kind of. I can I can try to open
Well,
it for you.
we can actually show this just in the fourth window if you
Okay.
want. You don't have to get it now. Yeah, yeah. We'll
Yeah,
take
all
some
right.
video of it and put it in that window.
Okay, so then some of them they are painted, but they're 98% they're from the childhood, basically.
Okay.
So they all
Yeah.
lose the figures I was playing with, basically.
Even with the custom ones that you kind of self-painted and did different things, I think just making sure that you have those original ones in your collection, I think is kind of the more personal side of it. So even though that they're quote unquote custom now, I think that's the right choice.
Yeah, they're the one I used to have as a kid, so they mean a lot to me. And
Exactly.
sure, in the business point of view, they're worth nothing, but I don't care. These are the one I have. They will go with the graveyard with me, you know. These ones.
That's
Yeah.
an interesting question, and we'll come back to that one in a moment. So moving forward with your collection, I just want to clarify, there is a word that is thrown around a whole lot lately, in particular with regards to Star Wars, and that is vintage. Vintage is just a reproduction of the originals. Yes?
The one from Hasbro, you mean? The one we see too?
Okay. My point is, what we see behind you are originals. Those are not from the vintage collection. So
no.
Here with regards to the word vintage.
Yeah, I see what you mean now. No, it's all genuine. They're all from the from 78 to 1985. No
Originals, OGs.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not considered. Those items are not considered vintage in the sense of marketing, for lack of a better description.
No. They're just like the one I used to have as a kid. So they
and maybe I'm not, because I keep seeing Jack's face get a squint on there, so I'm not sure if I'm
Well,
asking
what I personally feel that the originals that are behind John right there, you could classify those as vintage, but just stop at the word vintage. Hasbro has another line called the Vintage Collection with all three words in there, and that's a separate thing. And then they also have the Retro Collection, which look a lot like the ones that are original and the vintage ones behind him, but that's also a separate thing. So if you want to say vintage, you have to stop there to talk about the original. If you want to say the Vintage Collection, then that's three words that mean something else.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And John, what you have John, is originals.
Yes.
Original vintage. Yes.
It's complicated. Too much
That word
toys.
vintage just gets thrown around so easily.
Well, because again, it's the Vintage Collection. You're just taking out the one word vintage, but you have it's TVC.
Okay.
All three of them. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. TVC. Okay.
TVC.
But, so your collection there, how is it arranged? Obviously by date.
Yes, it is. I mean, what you see behind, it's the first 20 action figures from Star Wars plus Boba Fett. Over there, you have the 30 action figures for the Empire Strikes Back. And over there, the larger one is all of the action figures for Return of the Jedi. So this was classified by movies and then by by year, basically. Yeah.
And what's at the very top shelf? I see like Luke Skywalker and I think Darth Vader in the second row down. What's at the very, very top? Are those just images or catalogs? What do you have up there?
These are actually pictures I made with a printer.
Oh, okay.
So each time you have 3 pictures from the movie: Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
I see. Got it. Thank you. Amazing display.
Thank you.
And speak a little bit about the posters that I see behind there.
Uh-huh. Oh, these ones are the French poster from the movie theater. So I was lucky enough to be able to collect them in perfect conditions, and then I framed them and I also put them on the special protections system, which I can't really explain in English what it was like. They were like rolled, and then you put it into some kind of liquid with a some kind of a frame, like a paper frame on the back.
Yeah.
Then they get dry and it look like a giant frame, like. And then I put them back inside of those wood frame with the plexiglass on the front of it. That way they are displayed pretty well. But I don't have the space to display them all, unfortunately. So, but these are original from the movie theater. So there are four of them. You have two for Empire Strikes Back, one for Star Wars, and one for Return of the Jedi over there. And this one is very specific to the French market because they asked to a designer to do a very special design. At the time, they asked each country to make their own. In England, you have a different also poster than the French one, and from the one from the States as well. So they make it very specifically, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Doom in France. It's the same artist who made the movie poster for the French movie theater.
Interesting. Wow.
Very interesting. Who is the collector in your family?
Oh, I believe, except me, I guess Dad is a bit of a collector as well.
Really?
But not about the Star Wars thing, but for the music business, because he's a musician, so he collected jazz magazine and stuff like that. So I think I get the collector feeling from him basically, but with a different type of stuff. But apart from that, from um, my wife or my children, they do not collect like I do, like I did.
Are you still collecting these days?
No, not anymore.
Well, then it brings up an interesting question that we would have normally asked at this point. And that is, where would you purchase stuff? So since you're not purchasing, tell us, if you were to go purchasing, where would you go?
Well, on the web for sure, because this is where you go on the Facebook group, you can find a lot of items these days. I mean, I can see that specifically now you have a lot of action figures with Minton cards or Minton box vehicles, Facebook groups for Star Wars selling and stuff like that, or eBay as well. You find a lot of stuff these days. The price is pretty high. Even you can feel like there's a type of stagnation compared to the COVID period where price were very huge. I mean, there's a lot of items were selling for huge money. And but today I believe if you just want a couple of loose figures, you can make yourself happy going to the web on the Facebook group, and you can find people who will sell for a good price. Don't rush. It have to be fun. That's what I can advise, until it gets fun, just do it. If you can afford it, make yourself happy, go for it.
A bit of a follow-up on that question that Jim asked, but also to kind of bring it back to the book. With being the author of the book that you publish, do you get invited to any of these like Star Wars conventions or toy shows? Are you represented there?
My very first convention, Star Wars convention as an author, was actually in Germany. It was back in September 2022, and it was 3 days there, and I was invited, and I was with Jim Shringen, so he was sitting next to me. So it was just an amazing weekend for me because he was there. People asked me to sign the book, and when they start to open the book and find Jim pictures inside, they ask Jim to sign as well. And Jim was like telling so many stories again, even more than the one I put in the books. It was like, and they drove us from hotel to the place. They take care of us like my mom. So it was just a fantastic time. Then in France, I used to go to some conventions as well when I can sell the book as well in the French version of it. So I did like something maybe 25 30 conventions since the book was released in 2022. I
Wow.
was wanted to come to the States, but there's a certain budget to had. I wanted to go to Nashville. There's a quite a ICC nice place. I really wanted to come, but I couldn't afford the airplane ticket and stuff like that. So maybe one day.
Is that your friend?
Michael Havens
Yeah.
does ICCC. Yeah,
Yeah.
right, in Nashville. I haven't been myself, but yeah, obviously I'm part of that Facebook group and follow what they do. I think, John, you would be a perfect person to be at ICC. So let's get that going for sure.
So I'm curious, you were sitting there with that fellow, which was an attraction to come up to the booth and such. Jack and I attend local shows just a couple weekends ago, one in Simi Valley, a few months back, one in Ventura. I see two groups of vendors that I'm kind of questioning the validity of them being there. And one of them would be comic book producers, the guys who are writing the comic books themselves. The second group would be usually it's dads with daughters selling stickers.
Mm.
And maybe I'm completely out of that youth market, but the stickers things I really question. Maybe dad just wanted to bond with daughter and it was only $150 to spend a Saturday afternoon sitting there making the daughter happy selling 5-cent stickers or something. The comic book people, in particular over in Simi Valley last time, very engaging. They were always reaching out, asking questions, inviting us in. And I'm assuming it was to try to start a conversation. But I did not see that their product because I'm not a comic book person.
Mm.
I mean, I collect a few, but even if I was a comic book person, I would be interested in, say, Star Wars. These people out creating their own stories. From a book publisher or producer standpoint, what kind of response did you get with your book there?
When I start to create the book, I went to publisher first before doing this self-publishing. So in France, there was a publisher was actually very keen and he really wanted to do the book. But when I asked to Disney, Disney refused actually the idea to publish officially the book because it's not about the quality of the book, what was inside. The idea behind was like, if you are a publisher, if you're not coming with like 5 or 6 projects, they will not make a deal with you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's how it goes. No matter what kind of project it is. So you can be like a comics book publisher or for the movie industry, you publish books all about making of, how the movie is and stuff like that. This is the deal. If a publisher do not come without a proper several proposition, a single proposition, they will not sign any kind of project with you. That's that's the thing.
Huh.
Okay.
Only one
And at the actual convention that you went to in Germany, did you sell quite a few books? Did you engage with quite a few fans? How was that?
I sold about 60 books in 2 days,
Okay.
which is quite a lot to
Very good.
me.
Yeah.
And I did 2 convention in Germany actually, and every time it was 50 to 60 books every time. In France, it's a bit different because the science fiction fantasy world is a different kind for different kind of people. It's not like massive like you can be uh, in Germany, England, or even in America or Canada and Mexico actually. So that's a different approach basically. When I go to a convention in France, they're a very small town. I can sell like 5 to 10 books maximum somehow. There was a massive Star Wars convention in the southeast of the country every year since 25 years. When I went for the first time, I even do I explain on stage how the project was and everything. And that very day, I sold like 30 books in one day, and the whole weekend I sold out 50 books. So that was pretty for me amazing.
Wow.
To be on stage, explain the what we've just been talking about. I never thought I will do that kind of thing before in my life, you know. That was kind of crazy to me, but people were happy. I was a bit scared to do it, but at the end, I found a way to do it.
Of
It's
course. No,
exciting. It's exciting.
yeah. He's a collector, an author, and a public speaker. So yes.
So I have two questions at this point. Tell us, you referenced Facebook. Where else would you go to buy these kind of collectibles?
You can locally, you can have some toy shop where you can make like comic shop. Usually they can have some stuff, but it could be expensive. So this is why I believe the best way is to go on the web and make deal with straight with people. It's somehow easier, and because sometimes what you can get in shop can be pretty expensive. I mean, over here in France, we don't have much comic shop dedicated to toys. You have more about Japanese manga and stuff like that. This is very popular over here. Kids love to read the Japanese manga. So we are the second country after Japan for that kind of publication. So it's pretty massive for Star Wars, Harry Potter, or other kind of things like that. Also popular. It's a bit different. And the best way is to me going to a convention. Sometimes you can find people who you can buy some items because you can see it. Of course, on the web, you have to wait to receive the item if it's exactly the one you saw on the picture. And over here, people get more careful and they prefer going to conventions to see the actual item, make a deal, bargain sometime with the dealer, and then go back with the item.
Mhm.
So
A
that
couple of thoughts. I mean, if you're, let me go to a different question. When you say buying online, so do you feel that that is someone who is buying and ultimately that's shipped from the US, or do you believe that that is a European provider?
or it can be both. Personally, I bought a lot. 80% of my collection, I bought it from distance, from the States. So I have to, like we spoke before, I have to write. They send me a catalog, sending a money order at the time because there was no PayPal or whatsoever. So we have to wait. The guy get the money and to get. But we have a trust to each other. Sometimes I never had any issue receiving items from the States, to be honest. And sometimes locally have more issues with some people living in 10 miles away from home than 10,000 miles. You know, it sounds crazy. I remember one, a person I thought I could trust was when I bought my movie posters. I met him in the convention and I bought him a poster and he said, well, back home, in my shop, I have several posters and he showed me some pictures. That one would be interesting. It was like a very rectangular poster with every Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. When in 1985 they do the marathon, you can watch all the movies together, like overnight, and over there was like 6 or 7 hours, you know. So that was there was crazy time, and there was a very few posters survived that time. So when I saw on his catalog the availability, I said, "Okay, I'd like to have one." I said, "Well, I don't have it with me. I can send you by mail." I said, "Fine." I give him, I think send him a check or something, but the guy didn't make any protection. I receive it in my mailbox. The So I was like, what the hell? You're supposed to be a pro. You sell movie poster and you didn't even use a cardboard or something. And the mailman wanted to put it into the mailbox. It was like, it was paying free time, you know. When I came back from work, I said, what the hell is that? You know,
Yeah.
I opened my mailbox and I thought, come on, no way. And I never had it from other place. I was really, very unhappy. I called him on the phone and said, I mean, those kind of things are unique. And what the hell have you done? You could at least put a cardboard or something and put fragile whatsoever, you know.
Something. Right. Yeah.
Silly. No.
I buy
you know.
I buy a lot of stuff and I buy a lot of it. I'd say 95% of what I buy is off eBay. And in general, most eBay suppliers are prompt, attractive pricing, and well packaged. But every once in a while, you get someone who just tossed it in the box, threw a little bit of paper or packing in there, and you could shake it and all that. And some people just it's a small percentage,
It
fortunately.
is. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
some people just shouldn't be in that business. The
Mm.
flip side is I got something the other day. It was a Lost in Space robot.
Uh-huh.
It was so well packaged. Not only was it layers and layers and layers of bubble pack, but he
Mm-hmm.
had purchased little stickers to tape the edge of the pack, the bubble pack, and he had a nice little sticker on the box. I actually made it a point to immediately go back and give positive feedback to that particular shipper, and I said, "Fantastic packaging."
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, that guy should be recognized for what he did. And I even got, it was one of those make offers. So I didn't lowball him, but I got a lower price than what he was asking. So maybe his incentive for being profitable was gone, but he still packaged it real well. So
Mm-hmm.
there's still good people out there.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this kind of issue I had, I mean, it's probably 99% of the time I receive everything in good condition without damage and everything, but just like you said, a very tiny small percentage of issues I had in 35 years of collection and from having stuff from abroad and no, basically you can go on the web, it's very small issues.
And the irony is those idiot people who can't package, they either get upset when you catch them or very defensive. It's
Yeah,
like they
yeah.
knew they made a mistake or just knew that they were inadequate in doing it. But, you know.
And, I want to steer it back to some of our specific questions that we have
Yep.
here. We talked quite a bit about, the source and different shippers and different things like that. But I want to ask you, Jean, do you have a favorite item, being almost a lifelong collector? Do you have that one item that's like the showcase item or your favorite Star Wars item?
I don't really have one that way because every package coming from the States was like Christmas to me. So even a Slave One or a Droid Factory, those items like the Sonic Control and Speeder, they mean a lot because we didn't have it as a kid and back in the days. But I can't say I have a very specific item like I will put like a Holy Grail on the shelf or something. But there's a few scarf item I could like the Dead Star space station, the US version. That for me was something I was very keen to get, and I get it through a toy shop in Paris, and back in 1992. So when I've got that one, because I love the Palais toy version. This is the one I played with as a kid, and I really enjoyed it. But I really wanted to have the one from the States, and when I received it, that was a big moment. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's funny that you mentioned that, the Death Star playset, the US version, because I think for so many Americans, it's the Palatoy Death Star version that
Yeah.
we're all trying to get. Yes. The grass is always greener, I guess they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, since you don't have a specific item that you would say is your holy grail or showcase item, what about the Star Wars movies or now even the Star Wars series, the TV shows that they've produced? Do you have a favorite there and why?
Oh, I always loved the first Star Wars I saw on the movie theater. Them as a grown up, I always loved the first Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back is to me the perfect movie in the movie point of view, from the angle from like a movie producer, from an adult somehow. Empire Strikes Back is you can't change a single frame. Everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Definitely. Recently, I like to watch the Rogue One movie because he was connected with the first Star Wars, I believe. And I also from the Disney TV series, I like the one with Grogu and the Mandalorian
Mandalorian.
because
The
my
Mandalorian.
kids love it, and we have a lot of Grogus actually at home.
So it sounds like the collection is actually continuing with the children and maybe with Grogu. Maybe not as big of a collection, but there's still some collecting happening.
There will be, but they have a few Grogus and the helmet of the Mandalorian, and so that's something going through the generation basically.
Sure. And what do you, now that you have children and they're getting involved in Star Wars and they enjoy the toys as well, where do you see the future of your collection? You talked, about an hour ago, you said, oh, I'm going to take the stuff to the grave with me. But I'm curious, are you eventually going to sell off everything? Are you going to leave it to the kids? What's your thought where the collection is 25, 30 years from now?
They probably, I mean, my kids, my oldest daughter, she wants to keep it, but she's 12 years old, so she will really do it later. I don't know. I was thinking of selling it at some point because when there come the time where I won't be here, what they will do with all that stuff, there may be a burden for them, and so maybe at some point I will have to sell to other collectors. They will be happy to get the items and stuff like that. Maybe they'll be happy to get one of the items were in the book, like John Cullerman sell his own action figures. I say, you see, this is the one from the book. So maybe in the near future, I might be doing something like that. For sure, the one behind me, I will keep it with me. That will be the only cabinet that will keep with me with the action figures inside, and a few of my Millennium Falcons, the one I had for my 10 years old birthday. Because there's a big story behind. Because back in 1981, when I get 10 years for my 10 years birthday, we could not get the Millennium Falcon in France. So it's my mom and my dad. They went to Brussels in Belgium. They'd have plenty of them. They came from Palais, and they came back and make the surprise. So it was like one of the best days as a kid having the Millennium Falcon. We were looking for it for years, and then you have it. Wow! Don't disturb me no more. Now I'm busy.
There's people out there that say bigger isn't always better, but when it comes to the Millennium Falcon and the way that was packaged, bigger is better.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is there a favorite character in any of the movies that you have a strong feeling for?
Yoda and Luke Skywalker, they definitely. Uh, there's one scene I love so much. Would give me the chicken goose. I mean the orange
Goosebumps.
skin.
Yes, right.
And it's the scene where Yoda explained the Force to Luke when he felt he could not lift from the swarm the X-wing, and then Yoda explained to him what is the power of the Force, and you're not just the crew matters and the Force surrounding you, and then he lift up the X-wing. And that part of the movie is, and from the whole Star Wars trilogy, I love this moment when Yoda explained to Luke, and of course with John Williams music on the back, and it's just like it's still something amazing to me, that very moment. This is why perhaps I like Yoda so much, and also perhaps because I met that's about 25 years ago now, but I used to go to England twice a year to meet the staff, the people working on the movies, and I met Stuart and Kay Freeborn. And Stuart Freeborn is the guy who actually sculpted Yoda's face with using his own face with a mirror. But also, he worked on 400 films. But the way he explained how he creating Yoda, but Yoda, you believe, is a real person. When you look in the films, it's not a puppet. It's like is the Jedi Master, and there's something so magical about that character. I really enjoyed it, and it's perhaps why. Yoda and Luke are both my favorite characters.
And as you're describing why the Luke and Yoda are your favorite characters, I too am now getting the goosebumps that you explained. So just thinking about that scene, yeah, it's amazing. It really is. Yeah.
What would be your advice for collectors today, whether it be people who have been collecting for years or new collectors?
Having fun. That's my best advice I can. When you're happy to get an action figures, no matter what it is, if you're happy with an Ewok or a droid figure, Darth Vader, or any kind of action figures or playsets or vehicles, just make yourself happy. That's what I will advise. Collecting toys have to be fun. If it's not fun, do something else.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great collection, great information. You're one of the lucky few that not only was there in the very beginning, but has been able to hang on to what they had in the very beginning. And then on top of it, you've done this fantastic monumental project of producing this book. And I'm sure you're going to get a number of orders from all the people who are watching this video. We've got, I think Jack said the other day, 269 subscribers.
That's cool.
Which is a dedicated group of people who collect stuff and are interested in this stuff. And it's a fairly consistent subscribership that comes back and watches all the different videos.
Right. It's obviously a long content type of YouTube format. And so it's maybe not for everybody, especially with everybody, you know, kind of just like shorts and different things like that. But now over 270 subscribers that we have to this channel. They are very dedicated subscribers. They tend to watch a lot. In fact, we just put up a new video this morning, and it's been a while since we had a video because, you know, in Los Angeles, we had the fires and some evacuations, also a lot of power outages that happened. So it was hard to do some editing and some different things, not knowing how the power was going to be. But one person commented already. He was like, "Oh, so happy to see you guys back." So that was very cool to have that
That's
comment.
good.
Yes,
Good
absolutely.
news.
And for the viewers, we have no intent on going away. It's just sometimes it doesn't come out as fast as we would like.
That's right. That's right. And I have over 800 subscribers on my channel, and I plan to take a little clip from what we talked about today and put that on my YouTube channel, specifically about the book and where they can get the book. So I'll try to get a few more people. And I know you personally have, you know, thousands of subscribers to your YouTube channel and your social media. So hopefully you'll be able to show this on there as well and get some more people kind of interested in the book that haven't bought the book yet, but you definitely should. Let's sell these out, especially the US versions, so he doesn't have to pay these storage fees anymore. Again, the link is in the description.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
And I just want to, again, everybody that's out there on YouTube, if you've made it this far in the interview, obviously there's something that you like about this. So go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe so you can be on top of all the new videos that come out. And again, that link to the book is in the description, as well as, you know, I always just create like a fun little story in the description. So just go down to the description and read the story, because that's a lot of fun too. Jim, thank you so much for providing us with this interview today. Jean, thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview today. Really a wealth of information and knowledge that you shared with everyone. I really do appreciate it. I always like to end these interviews with, "May the force be with you."
Bye.
Thank you.